Just moments ago, Buckingham Palace fell into an uneasy silence, with talk of betrayal, anxiety, and rising fear spreading through the heart of power. King Charles, long seen as a figure meant to unify the nation, now finds himself surrounded by a crisis he never expected. Across the country, voices from Glasgow to Birmingham are no longer pleading but demanding change. People want their say, and the message is unmistakable: let the nation vote, and let democracy lead. Inside Parliament, tension has reached breaking point. Cabinet members are clashing behind closed doors, political alliances are falling apart, and the stability of the United Kingdom's democracy is at risk. Tonight, Britain isn't simply witnessing history, it is reshaping it. At the centre are a cornered monarch, a prime minister losing control, and a public rising with a determination not seen in generations. The crisis hit with shocking force, and it wasn't triggered by a policy dispute or a careless political misstep. It was the result of pure, undeniable betrayal. For months, the public had endured inflation, austerity, and a long list of broken commitments. But this time, the line was crossed. A hidden meeting inside Whitehall, meant to remain secret forever, was leaked to the press, revealing plans to delay general elections until 2026. No referendum, no approval from voters, and no democratic mandate. Senior Tories, key palace advisers, and silence from the king were all tied to the meeting. Within hours, social media exploded with outrage, pushing hashtags demanding a national vote to the top of every platform. The response on the streets was immediate. London saw its first major protest within 24 hours, peaceful but powerful, with handmade signs, Union flags, and chants echoing through Westminster. No crown without consent, we want the vote, and king or country became the rallying cries. This uprising wasn't just political, it was deeply personal. The public felt abandoned. King Charles, whose reign was expected to bring calm after turbulent years, suddenly found himself frozen by events. His aides scrambled while the palace delayed statements, creating a growing sense of unease. Charles had always walked a careful line between tradition and neutrality, but this moment offered no room for silence. To many, his lack of response appeared like complicity. Behind palace walls, pressure grew rapidly. Royal insiders shared fragments of tense discussions. The king, reportedly angered by being dragged into constitutional turmoil, begged for discretion, but the moment for quiet diplomacy had passed. Former prime ministers called urgently. Veteran MPs from both the Conservatives and Labour demanded immediate action. For the first time in decades, the monarchy stood directly in the path of political fury. In the House of Commons, Sir Keir Starmer took a decisive step. Speaking with controlled intensity, he demanded immediate elections, declaring that the people must choose their future. His words echoed the mood of millions. It wasn't just a statement, it was a declaration of national defiance. The Prime Minister reacted by disappearing. No press briefing, no explanation, only a vague comment from Number 10 about government continuity and security concerns. Everyone knew what that meant: the government was collapsing under its own fear. Newspapers shifted dramatically. Outlets that once protected the monarchy now questioned whether the king had turned his back on the public. Editorials painted a stark contrast: a nation begging for its democratic voice to be respected and a throne staying silent. Across towns and cities, local government buildings filled with citizens demanding change. Civil servants loyal to the Conservative Party leaked internal warnings about public unrest. Scotland's First Minister issued a bold message: if Westminster refused to act, Scotland would make its own decisions. Wales soon echoed the sentiment. The unity of the United Kingdom began to shake. Then came the breaking point. At 7:42 p.m. last night, a royal spokesperson stepped in front of cameras. What many expected to be a calming message became a shock. The spokesperson confirmed that the king had been informed about plans to delay the election, and did not object. Gasps spread across every newsroom. Reporters pushed for clarification, but none came. The implication was unmistakable, he knew, and he said nothing. From that moment, King Charles was not simply a monarch, he was a man facing judgment from the nation. By sunrise, the anger was unstoppable. Westminster was transformed into a fortress, with lines of police surrounding Downing Street as chants filled the air. Protests erupted in Liverpool, Leicester, Belfast, and Brighton, all united by one message: this is not your Britain. It was a rebellion rooted not in violence, but in sheer determination. The Prime Minister was no longer the sole target. Now the monarchy itself was under fire, seen by many as blocking democratic rights. The sense of betrayal was profound. Inside Parliament, panic spread like wildfire. Cabinet ministers, who once stood united, now attacked each other with desperation. Leaked recordings revealed explosive arguments, with the Home Secretary accusing the Chancellor of engineering national instability. The Foreign Secretary threatened to resign unless an election date was declared immediately. Yet the Prime Minister remained silent, his authority evaporating by the minute. Each hour without action deepened public anger and exposed the monarchy to even more criticism. Then Starmer emerged again, not as a party leader, but as a symbol of national accountability. His speech outside Parliament was calm but historic. "This is not a call for party," he said. "This is a call for country. If the Crown cannot defend democracy, then democracy must defend itself." His wording was sharp and deliberate, separating Britain's identity from those currently leading it. Overnight, his approval ratings skyrocketed. Newspapers across the spectrum printed headlines calling him the People's Prime Minister. Power began shifting rapidly. Senior civil servants walked out of government meetings in protest. One insider revealed that documents preparing for a delayed 2026 election had already been printed and approved by top officials without parliamentary consent. Even worse, certain lords had been warned not to speak publicly. A secret, unconstitutional plan was now exposed to the nation. Headlines declared, "Plot to delay democracy, monarchy new," and "Crisis at the Crown." Inside the palace, King Charles was shaken. Royal engagements were cancelled for security reasons. Public spaces covered royal portraits in black cloth, not vandalizing them, but symbolically rejecting silence. This wasn't the fall of the monarchy, but it was the start of a reckoning. The military added to the crisis when leaked discussions revealed concerns about being used for crowd control. A senior commander warned that the army must never be turned against the public. It was a chilling reminder of past empires and collapses Britain once believed it had outgrown. With the country restless, Starmer announced a People's Assembly, a national gathering of MPs, legal experts, and citizens to reassert constitutional order. Critics dismissed it, but their voices were drowned out. The Assembly met in Manchester, drawing tens of thousands. It was the most significant public political gathering in over a century, and still the King said nothing. His silence allowed Starmer to grow further, becoming a representative of every broken promise, ignored voice, and betrayed ideal. Soon the public asked a new question: if the monarchy refuses to defend democracy, does it still deserve its place? Institutions once seen as untouchable, Parliament, the Crown, the Cabinet, were now subjects of open debate and demands for reform. Everyday conversations shifted. The line had been crossed, and Britain was not going back. As dawn broke, something irreversible had begun. Councils passed public resolutions declaring no confidence in the government. Protesters occupied regional government buildings. Even city mayors, normally neutral figures, defied the Prime Minister and demanded immediate elections while criticizing the King's silence. Britain stopped waiting and started acting. Inside Buckingham Palace, paralysis took hold. Royal advisers who once managed crises through silence had lost control. The monarchy had misjudged the nation. By choosing neutrality in a moral emergency, it appeared to have chosen the wrong side. King Charles faced a crisis not only of constitution but of character. Even his family and church leaders urged him to speak. Every minute he remained silent damaged his legacy. Then, at 4 p.m., the People's Assembly issued a declaration signed by 237 MPs, legal experts, and thousands of citizens. If Parliament did not call an election within 72 hours, and if the King did not support the constitutional process, the Assembly would begin a public referendum to declare no confidence, bypassing Parliament entirely. It was legally uncertain, but morally forceful. The statement ended with a chilling message: if our rulers will not protect democracy, the people will replace them. The political collapse was instant. Senior ministers resigned one after another. In 24 hours, 7 top officials had stepped down. The Prime Minister still held office in name, but his government had dissolved in reality. Starmer, standing before a crowd in Leeds, surrounded by veterans, nurses, judges, and faith leaders, declared that if no election was called within 72 hours, the public vote would proceed nationwide, with independent oversight. "This is not a coup," he said. "This is the cure." Still, King Charles remained silent. The pressure became unbearable. Newspapers published countdown clocks. Public figures begged the King to speak. Church bells rang in protest. Scotland's First Minister used the term post-monarchy Britain for the first time. MI5 issued warnings about social cohesion cracking. Then everything shifted. At 11:32 p.m., a black car entered Buckingham Palace carrying Keir Starmer, 2 retired High Court judges, and the Archbishop of Canterbury. This was not a meeting, it was a direct confrontation. Although the conversation remains private, sources confirmed it was intense. Starmer demanded the King publicly support elections in the name of constitutional duty. The Archbishop agreed. Soon after, the King issued a rare national address supporting the immediate restoration of democratic processes. Elections were set. When voting began, turnout rose above 82%. People from every background appeared in massive lines across Britain. Schools, churches, and car parks became polling stations. The mood was solemn, not celebratory, a recognition that something old had died and something uncertain was beginning. When results arrived, the political landscape shifted dramatically. Labour, under Starmer, won a historic majority. The Conservative Party suffered its worst defeat ever. Regions that had been conservative for generations flipped overnight. In the aftermath, Starmer entered number 10 without celebration, aware he was inheriting a broken system, paralysed departments, weakened institutions, and a public that had lost trust. His first speech acknowledged the real reason for his victory: we were not elected because we inspired. We were elected because the people could no longer endure those who failed them. Meanwhile, inside Buckingham Palace, King Charles faced a monarchy stripped of moral authority. Polls showed public support at record lows. Discussions began about reforming the monarchy's role, with some proposing a new form of active constitutional engagement. But none of it could erase the damage done by his silence. Britain's allies observed cautiously. International headlines declared, "Britain avoids collapse, monarchy humbled, and government reborn." Though democracy had survived, its reputation was wounded. As communities that fueled the uprising looked ahead, they realized one election couldn't solve years of hardship. The NHS was still overwhelmed, wages remained stagnant, and the cost of living continued to rise. Starmer moved quickly, repealing emergency legislation used to justify delaying elections. But promises alone would no longer satisfy the public. The movement that lifted him could turn against him just as quickly if he failed to act.